On FX8350 in 2018. Is it possible? I don't know. Considering we just built this a couple of weeks ago and we got everything about tweaked out. We've got all the fans in it, LEDs, RGBs, all that good stuff. Custom acrylics, custom side panel case. And basically we'll just go through a quick setup of what everything is. What we're running with. Start with, I guess, we have a Hyper 212 LED cooler from Cooler Master. It's an RGB, it's the red one. If you guys look in there, you can probably see the red LEDs. I just put a custom plate on it because with the side plate here and the way the computer sits, it's blinging, the lights are, so I just put something on there, kind of designed it a little bit, and just put a little etching and all that's in it. There is 11 fans that is in this. There is 4 that are 120, 5 that are 120s. I think 1, 2, 3, 4 that are like 86s. The power supply's got a couple fans in it. It's getting air from the bottom of it. It is a Gigabyte 78 LMT R2 motherboard. We'll get into that a little bit later. There is a GTX 1050 2 gig PCI powered 70 watt TDP video card that's in it from NVIDIA. The case is a Rosewill Nautilus. That one, it originally didn't come with like this at all. It's all highly modified now. You can see the Stormtrooper guy, some paint and all that stuff. Painting your rig, I definitely recommend having Plastidip or something that has a primer in it, or priming what you're going to paint first, because you'll have a mess if you don't, and definitely let it dry. Other than that, why we have a problem with this motherboard? Well, sure, it is the ultra durable version, and it's the newer one from the R6 version, and AM3 boards are way outdated because of DDR4, the Ryzens, and etc, etc, etc. But this is basically a video about gaming on an FX8350 in 2018, what I paid for this, and the components that I have, and why I would replace the motherboard if I was building this again. This motherboard has a 760G chipset in it. The motherboard does support a 125 watt TDP FX8350 CPU, which is what is in this. But because this processor is at the top end of the board, when you attempt to overclock this to get more out of this processor, we're now sucking power way beyond what the board is capable of. It's not even that I'm getting hot or anything like that. I have more fans, way more fans than what's in this for being an air-cooled system to keep this cold and cool and collective. And right now we're running at 4.27 gigahertz, and when I try to get to 4.3 with this board, no matter what the voltage settings are, or what I put on the North Bridge or anything like that, it just immediately blacks out and will get into a reboot loop. It won't boot itself. It doesn't like it. It won't go into it at all. So what we have here is a multiplier set at 21 and then a front side bus speed of like 203, and that's as far out edged as we can get to close to 4.3, but not all the way there, so that when the computer does go under load, it still is, you know, we don't have the V droop, it becomes unstable, blah 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 blah. We're not talking about really overclocking. The 8350 can go way beyond 5 gigahertz if you play the CPU lottery, you get lucky, etc, etc, etc. This CPU, because it's only been on this board, I know it's going to be way more capable of 4.2, because 4.2 is only its turbo core technology. I'm sure I've had it way unstable at 4.4 on this board, but the minute that you put it on Prime 95 or attempt to stress it with like AMD overdrive or anything like that, it blue screens, gets into a repeat, and it doesn't like it. So I have Cinebenched it at when it was unstable and getting extremely hot, because when you put the load line on this motherboard to extreme, even if you put it at the recommended stock settings, 1.325 volts, the load line control for some reason wants to put it at 1.8 and 2 volts on the core, which is hella not good. and it gets extremely hot because you're way over the recommended voltage for the CPU, and it's not good at all. I would go with a probably 970 or a 990 chipset if you guys was to get this set up. The motherboard probably would be another $20 or $30 more than what this motherboard was. If I would have foreseen in the future what this motherboard, I didn't even realize it. I just kind of picked it up. This is what I ended up with. So is it worth it now for another couple $100 to replace this motherboard? Maybe get lucky with somebody else in my area that has an AM3 CPU and wants the better motherboard and would buy this from me, and I can get some money back out of it. Probably not. So do I want to invest another couple $100 in the motherboard? No. The chances of probably finding a used one is probably a little bit better, maybe in the $80 to $100, $125 range Canadian currency we're talking about here, not American. Plus, if it's international, I got to deal with, you know, postage and international shipping costs and all that other stuff. So this might just sit the way that it is, honestly. I don't have no issues gaming with it at all. If anything, maybe the graphics card could get a little bit better due to streaming and all that stuff. And you know, you put the GPU and the video engine to the max in this little card. I probably would go with a 1050 Ti 4 gig max, or min, I mean, for something like this. That'll probably be the very next upgrade that'll go in this. There is 14 gigs of DDR3 1600 that's in it, and it's overclocked on the front side bus, so it's running at like 1686 or something like that. It doesn't have a huge clock on it. The RAM is stock, so trying to overclock the RAM, it becomes unstable when you throw a whole bunch of stuff on it. And because of the board, the way that it is, it does not like to boot into Windows. You'll get stuck in an infinite boot loop, and you got to go back in your BIOS and reset stuff. Turn it down, slow it down. You could get 1866, the DDR3. That probably would be, you know, pretty cool for increasing your FPS in games. But the way that this is, I have no problems other than maybe grabbing a different card. There's even 6 gig cards right now. 1060s are on sale, so maybe that's something that I'll go with as a GTX 1060. That'll be a nice upgrade from this 2 gig 1050 that's in it. But let's go over and see what we're getting. This is World of Warcraft Legion. This is right before the new X-Pack BFA is coming out. We're in Dalaran right now. This is the worst spot to have load and, you know, your frames and all that. We're playing at a settings rate at a little bit above medium. We're getting 4850 frames sitting right here. And that's Dalaran. I don't care what CPU you're on. I've read all kinds of ratings about people that's got, you know, the 8770Ks or whatever it is.
Hey, there he is.
Their stuff. My buddies are coming in on Discord right now, so I don't mind them. Other than that, the new i7s, like the 8700s and stuff like that, I wouldn't say that they're amazing, and they're worth $600 or $700 just for the processor itself, when I probably built this whole gaming computer for about $750. That's with all the parts. That's not the acrylics. The acrylics, I think I paid 21 bucks plus tax, and I got, you know, the cost of some paint and my time that's in it, and heat. You know, I have tons of tools. I'm a contractor, so that's just kind of what we do here. We build houses, so having stuff to build a computer is pretty easy. Anyways, an i7 like the 8700s or 86s or 4670s or whatever the hell they have, the QMs and all that other stuff, I don't think that they're worth the money because, like I said, I'm an AMD guy. I know that the IPCs are way better for gaming and all that other stuff, but with Ryzen out right now and with the way that the cost is, I don't know, if you're an Intel guy, it's really hard not to be wanting to build a Ryzen right now. That's all I can say. So, back to gaming. Even with an i7, you're going to have huge FPS dips and stuff like that just because of Dalaran, the way that it is, the way that the game engine is set up. Hopefully with BFA, there's supposed to be a little bit of change in design to the game engine that's in World of Warcraft. So maybe it will, you know, improve the frame rate so that it utilizes more cores because nobody's gaming anymore on a 1 or 2 core gaming system. This rig does have an SSD, but because the motherboard is only SATA 2, we're getting about 60% speed out of the SSD, which isn't bad at all. I mean, it's not amazing. We still got 40%, but it's not horrible for gaming, I guess you could say. You got increased load times, and like you could see right here, just from standing inside Stormwind, we went from Dollarana to Stormwind because of the difference in the cities and the loads with the factions. Now we're getting 225 frames. So I mean, it just depends on where you are that's in the game. It's an MMO. It's hella single and double core intensive for World of Warcraft, but it utilizes a lot of your engine when you are running around in the game due to the fact that it's an MMO. So it's going to be more onto the CPU. So even though you have a wonderful graphics card like a 1080 Ti or whatever, you're still going to get frame dips due to the fact it's an MMO, and you know, more people that are moving around, the more stuff that the computer has to catch up with, etc., etc., etc. So, like I said, it's all about what you're doing, where you're running around at. I'm sure with a GTX, maybe the 1060, I'm going to see a hell of an improvement because this card is bottlenecked. We can go in a hardware monitor right here, and we can see that we were already at 72%, and that's just running around in there. This was just reset before I showed you guys and logged over the min-max values, and that's just running around, loading from Dalaran, going into Stormwind. We had 72% load on the GPU. The memory was already at 80%, and our frame buffer was 21. Our video engine wasn't even being utilized there, but if you were in a giant raid, I'm sure that I'd probably see in the 20 or 30% range for something like that. The overclock that's on this card is probably 145, I think, and then we have about 455 or 445. It's one of them two that's on the memory. So the card is right at its max stability. We are right under 4.3, even though it's 4.6, or yeah, 4.6 is where we're sitting at right now. It tends to run a little bit faster because of the increasing front side bus. So under load, we're getting 4.77. This board, when you put it under extreme, like I said, your min and maxes, it's trying to correct your core with your V droop, with your overclock, but just having the board set to regular, it really manages the voltage, so that you don't have more voltage that's being thrown into it, and your peaks and mins and maxes aren't huge. So we are at 1.405 volts. Due to just sitting there, we have 1.38 that's on the core right now, and it's running like this. The min under load is 1.356. It never ever dips under 1.356, so it does have a slight curve that's in the V core for the V drop, while the CPU is coming under intensive load. It's not bad though. This is as stable as we can get it with this board. Our temperatures are wonderful. Right now we're sitting at 24 degrees on our core. We have a max 39 running around there. I might see 40 or 42 or something like that in game when everything is under load, and I'm getting about 60 or 70% on the processor. And then the graphics card itself, I probably don't see more than 62 degrees on a max with everything running at 100%. Which is pretty decent for all the fans and air that's coming through there. We blow a lot of air out. It heats the room up in here pretty fast. Other than that, I would have grabbed a different motherboard so that we could have pushed the 8350 a little bit more, and that's where I would have went with it. Getting into testing programs, we could load up Cinebench right quick, and I could show you where we just benched at. We just benched at a 663. This right here is our 4-core, 8-thread, 4.25. That's what we were benched at right there. The AMD FX8350. This is our processor. And we just benched a little bit faster than an i7 3770. 1 point faster. Right here is an i7 4770K 822 blowing us out of the water. And then you have the Xenon processor, or Xeon processor, 12-core, 24-thread monster, just doing crazy numbers here on Cinebench. With the OpenGL, We were probably running at, I don't see where my benchmark is in here, but I was getting 83.64. I don't know why it's not saved right now in this, but 83.64 is our benchmark right now with this. In our user benchmark, we scored 12,000, just under 13,000, I believe, something like that with user benchmark. So, did we experience stutters, frame drops? Yeah, we experienced a little bit of frame drops. World of Warcraft's an MMO. It happens even on the latest processors due to the engine that the game is built on. If we were playing Witcher, Grand Theft Auto 5, something like that, we'd be stable, probably in 100, 125 range, and it's just the way that that game's designed, the way that that engine is, for it says World of Warcraft. I do not have a video for those benchmarks for those games due to the fact that I don't play those games, so they're not even on this computer. World of Warcraft is really all that this thing sees. That's about it. A new game right now for $750 Canadian, which would probably be somewhere in the 580 mark American, with everything that we have in this, including the graphics card. The power supply is a Cooler Master 500 watt bronze rated. Other than that, yeah, that's it. I'd say about 580 to 600 American. It's 750 and a little bit of change Canadian for this whole setup right here. And I'm extremely happy with it. In 2018, my point was proven. I mean, this thing will run games for who knows how long. It does everything that I want at lightning speed. It boots up from an off boot in the morning to probably 3 seconds. It's in. We could load World of Warcraft. It's a huge game to load. It's 72 gigs, so I mean, it has a lot to render and load. We're in game in 2 to 4 seconds from the loading screen, from the time that you click its icon on the desktop. So yeah, it loads fast. We're only getting 60% speeds out of the PNY SSD that's in there, but due to the fact of the motherboard, I just wasn't paying attention to what I did. That is my fault. We could absolutely get more out of this if you guys just went with an FX970 or a 990. That is the only thing that I would upgrade. You will get 100% utilization out of your SSD, and you'll be able to overclock the FX8350 a lot farther, depending on if you're running air or water. If you're running water, I'm sure you can go a lot faster or a lot farther with your overclock, due to the fact that more power is more thermal. You got more thermal, you have a problem, because 62 is the limit that's on your CPU. I wouldn't go much over that. You could probably get to 72. It's AMD says 72 that's on its socket, or that's on the core right there, but I probably wouldn't go to 72 degrees on the core. When we're gaming, we're in the low 40s on this setup. With water, we'd probably be in mid or upper 30s, something like that, and then probably around the 5 gigahertz range, we would be in the mid 40s on a water cooled. Approaching 5 gigahertz on this. I don't know if we can do 5 gigahertz on this because it is air cooled. We might do 4.8 comfortably. If we had a bigger power supply, probably I might need a little bit more power for 4.8, and a better motherboard. So I'd say if you're going to get an 8350, get you 600 watts or more, depending on the card that you're going to get. So 600, 650 watts, that's probably all you need for a power supply. Get a 970 or 990 chipset board. You're doing wonders. You're gaming for probably till 2020 or more on a couple $100, buddy. It's a wonderful thing that AMD does, and I can't wait to get my hands on a Ryzen CPU here in the next coming weeks, and that'll be my very next build, and that'll be another video that'll go on there. And this one will be given to my son, and he'll enjoy this for many more years to come, I'm sure, due to the fact they play Fortnite and those other little tiny games and stuff, and that's going to be nothing for this. Fortnite on this computer runs 150 clips and maxes out. It doesn't drop at all because Fortnite's tiny. It's a little map, right? But yeah, here we go. AMD FX8350 2018, gaming hard, still going strong.